Hey there, friends. Picture this, it's a bright, sunny afternoon, the kind where the sun shines so big and warm you just want to sit outside all day. That's where my story starts last summer, on a day that felt perfect. My name's Jake Tanner. I'm just a normal guy, nothing fancy about me. I like simple things, a cold drink, a good laugh, and my favorite spot, my backyard pool. That pool? Oh, it's special. It's not just a hole with water and concrete. Nope, it's my dream, something I work super hard to get. And trust me, this story's about to get wild, so stick with me. Have you ever had someone try to take something that's yours? Something you love? Keep reading, because things are going to heat up fast. Let me tell you about that pool first. I didn't just wake up one day and have it. No way. I saved up for years, like, forever, it felt like. Every single penny I could grab, I saved. I worked late nights, when everyone else was sleeping. I'd come home tired, my eyes heavy, my hands sore, but I'd smile because I knew it was for that pool. I'd imagine it, cool blue water, me floating on a sunny day, no worries at all. It took so long to make it real, but when it was finally mine, I felt like a king. My own little kingdom, right in my backyard. That pool wasn't just a thing, it was my prize, my happy place. Now, let's talk about where I live. I've got a house in a neighborhood with lots of people around. It's pretty normal: green grass, kids riding bikes, dogs barking sometimes. My neighbors? They seemed okay when I moved in. You know, the kind who wave and say, "Hi, Jake," when they walk by. There's Mr. Peterson, who grows flowers and always smells like dirt. Then there's Sarah, who's got two little boys who run around yelling. And don't forget Karen, she's the big boss of the HOA, which stands for Homeowners Association. They make rules, like how your house should look or what you can do. At first, I thought they were all friendly. Their smiles were big, their voices were nice. But guess what? Behind those smiles, something sneaky was hiding. Something I didn't see coming. See, I liked my neighbors fine. I'd wave back, chat a little, maybe share a lemonade on a hot day. They'd peek over the fence sometimes and say, "Wow, Jake, that pool looks cool." I'd grin and say, "Thanks. Took me a long time to get it." They'd nod and walk away, and I'd think everything was good. But I didn't know they were watching my pool a little too much. I didn't know they weren't just being nice, they were planning something. Have you ever trusted someone, thinking they're your friend, but then found out they're up to no good? That's what was happening, and I was totally clueless. It started small, so small I didn't even notice at first. One day, I saw Mr. Peterson's dog sniffing around my fence. No big deal, right? Dogs do that. Then Sarah's boys ran by, shouting, "Can we swim, Jake? Please." I laughed and said, "Maybe one day." They giggled and ran off. I thought it was cute. But then Karen stopped by. She's tall, with sharp eyes and a smile that doesn't feel real. She said, "That's a nice pool, Jake. Really nice." I said, "Thanks, Karen," and went back to my day. I didn't think anything of it. Why would I? It was just talk, just people being friendly. Or so I thought. Days went by, and summer got hotter. I'd sit by my pool every chance I got. I'd splash in the water, float on my back, look up at the sky. It was perfect. My little escape from everything. Work was tough, sure, but that pool made it all better. I'd close my eyes and feel the sun on my face, the water cool around me. Nothing could ruin it. At least, that's what I believed. But while I was relaxing, my neighbors were whispering. They were meeting up, talking behind my back. I didn't hear it, didn't see it. I was too busy loving my pool to notice the trouble creeping closer. Then one afternoon, everything changed. I was in my house, making a sandwich, peanut butter and jelly, my favorite. The sun was shining outside, birds were singing, and I was thinking about jumping in the pool after lunch. Life was good. But then knock, 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 someone was at my door. I wiped my hands, walked over, and opened it. A man in a brown uniform stood there, holding a letter. "Jake Tanner?" he asked. I nodded. He handed me the envelope and left. I stood there, confused. What was this? I tore it open and started reading. My heart sank. My perfect day? It was about to fall apart. The letter was from the HOA. Karen's name was at the bottom, all fancy and signed. It said my pool, the one I worked so hard for wasn't just mine anymore. They called it community property. That means everyone in the neighborhood could use it. Anyone could jump in, splash around, make a mess. I read it again, then again, because I couldn't believe it. My pool? For everyone? No way. I felt my face get hot, my hands shake. This was my dream, my thing. How could they just take it? I looked out my window at that beautiful blue water. It didn't feel like mine anymore. I sat down, the letter in my lap, trying to figure it out. Why would they do this? I never said they could use it. I never agreed to share. But there it was, in black and white, by order of the HOA, your pool is now open to all residents. I pictured it, strangers in my yard, kids yelling, dogs running around. My quiet, happy place gone, just like that. I wanted to yell, to rip the letter up, but I took a deep breath instead. I had to think. I had to figure out what was going on. Because something told me this wasn't an accident. Something sneaky was behind it. That's when I remembered Karen's words, really nice pool, Jake. And Sarah's boys begging to swim. And Mr. Peterson's dog sniffing my fence. Little things, tiny clues I'd ignored. They'd been watching my pool all along, wanting it for themselves. I bet they talked about it at their HOA meetings, making plans while I was clueless. I felt dumb for not seeing it sooner. But I also felt something else, anger. They thought they could just take what's mine? Oh, no. They didn't know me yet. They didn't know what I'd do to keep my dream. So there I was, staring at that letter, my sandwich forgotten on the table. The sun was still shining, but it didn't feel warm anymore. My perfect summer day was ruined. But this wasn't the end, it was just the start. I wasn't going to let them win. Not without a fight. Have you ever felt that fire inside you, that need to stand up for what's yours? That's what I felt. My pool wasn't just water and concrete, it was me, my hard work, my heart. And no one, not Karen, not the HOA, was going to take it away. I looked out at my backyard again. The pool sparkled under the sun, so pretty, so peaceful. For now, it was still mine. But I knew they'd come soon, neighbors with towels, kids with toys, all thinking they owned it. I couldn't let that happen. I had to do something, something big. What would you do if someone tried to steal your favorite thing? Would you fight? Would you find a way? I did. And trust me, what I did next. It's the best part of the story. Stick around, friends, it's about to get hot. Okay, let's keep going. I'm Jake, and I'm telling you how it all began. That sunny afternoon wasn't just any day, it was the day everything started to change. I'm a guy who likes things simple. I work, I come home, I swim. That's me. My house isn't huge, my yard isn't fancy, but that pool? That's my treasure. I built it with my own hands, well, not really, but I paid for it, and that's close enough. Every dollar I earned, I saved. I skipped fun stuff like movies or pizza with friends just to make it happen. And when it was done, I'd sit by it and think, wow, Jake, you did this. My neighbors, though they were tricky. I didn't know it at first. I moved here a couple years ago, and they seemed great. I'd see them outside, watering plants or walking dogs. They'd smile, I'd smile back. Nice day, huh? I'd say. Sure is, they'd answer. Easy, friendly stuff. Mr. Peterson's an older guy, always digging in his garden. He'd wave with a muddy hand and say, looking good, Jake. Sarah's younger, always chasing her boys around. They'd zoom past my house, yelling and laughing. And Karen? She's the leader, the one who runs those HOA meetings. I didn't go to them, too boring. Big mistake. I should have paid attention. Because while I was swimming and relaxing, they were plotting. I didn't hear their whispers, didn't see their sneaky looks. I was too busy loving my pool. It was my escape, my happy spot. After a long day, I'd kick off my shoes, grab a floatie, and drift in the water. The world would disappear, just me and the quiet. Sometimes I'd hear birds or a lawnmower, but that was it. Peaceful. Perfect. I didn't think anyone would mess with that. Why would they? It was mine, right? Wrong. Looking back, there were signs. Little hints I missed. Like when Mr. Peterson's dog kept coming to my yard. It's a big, fluffy thing, always sniffing. I'd shoo it away, laughing, "Go home, buddy." But it kept coming. Then Sarah's boys, they'd stop by my fence, pressing their faces against it. "Jake, can we swim? Please, please." I'd say, "Not today, guys," and they'd run off. I thought they were just being kids. And Karen, she'd walk by slow, looking at my pool like it was a shiny toy. "Nice pool," she'd say, every time. I'd nod, proud. "Thanks." Never thought she meant anything by it. But they weren't just looking. They were wanting. They saw my pool and thought, "Hey, why's Jake the only one with something cool?" I found out later they'd been talking at those HOA meetings I skipped. Karen would say, "Jake's pool could be for all of us." Mr. Peterson would nod. Sarah would say, "My boys would love it." And the others? They'd agree. They made a plan, a sneaky one, to take it from me. I didn't know any of this not until that letter hit my hands. That letter day was a shock. I was so happy before it came. I'd just finished work, a long shift at the store where I stack boxes. My feet hurt, my back ached, but I didn't care. I had my pool waiting. I walked home whistling, thinking about a swim. I got inside, kicked off my shoes, and started making that sandwich. Peanut butter on one side, jelly on the other, simple, but so good. I was humming, the sun streaming through my window. Then knock, knock, knock. I wasn't expecting anyone. I opened the door, and there was that delivery guy with the letter. When I read it, my stomach dropped. Community property? What did that even mean? I had to read it 3 times to get it. The HOA said my pool wasn't mine anymore. Anyone could use it: Karen, Mr. Peterson, Sarah's loud boys, even that muddy dog. I pictured them all in my yard, taking over. No more quiet floats, no more peace. Just noise and mess. I felt sick. Angry. Scared. This was my pool, my dream. I worked for it, not them. How could they do this? Why would they? I sat there, the letter crinkling in my hands. My sandwich sat on the table, uneaten. The sun was still out, but I didn't feel it. I kept thinking, this can't be real. But it was. I looked at the pool through my window. It looked so pretty, so calm. I wanted to run out and hug it, tell it, "You're mine." But the letter said different. It said I'd lost it. I could almost hear Karen laughing, see her fake smile. She'd won, or so she thought. But I wasn't done. Not even close. That's when it hit me: I had to fight. I wasn't going to let them take my pool without a battle. They thought I'd just give up, say, "Okay, fine, use it." Nope. I'm Jake Tanner, and I don't quit. I worked too hard, dreamed too big. That pool was mine, and I'd make sure they knew it. I didn't know how yet, but I'd find a way. Something big, something they'd never expect. Have you ever had to stand up for something you love? That's where I was, mad, ready, and about to make a move. So that's how it started, friends. A sunny day, a happy guy, and a pool that meant everything. Then a letter, a sneaky plan, and a fight brewing. My neighbors thought they could take what's mine, but they didn't know me yet. They didn't know what was coming. Stick with me, because this story's just getting started. What would you do if someone tried to steal your favorite thing? I'll tell you what I did, and it's a doozy. Keep going with me, it's about to get awesome. Okay, friends, here's where things get tricky. One day, everything changed for me, Jake Tanner. I was just minding my own business when something big happened. I got a letter in the mail. It wasn't a fun letter, like a birthday card or a note from a friend. Nope, this one was from the HOA, the Homeowners Association. You know those people who make rules for the neighborhood? Like, they tell you how tall your grass can grow or if your fence is the right color. Yeah, those guys. I opened that letter, and my eyes got wide. It said my special backyard pool wasn't just mine anymore. They called it community property. That means anyone could use it whenever they wanted. Anyone. I read it again because I couldn't believe it. My pool? For everybody? No way. I stood there in my kitchen, holding that letter, feeling my heart thump fast. My pool was my happy place. I worked so hard to get it, years of saving money, late nights at my job, all for that blue water I loved. And now the HOA was saying it didn't belong to just me. I pictured it, strangers splashing around, kids yelling, maybe even dogs jumping in. My quiet spot, gone. I felt mad, like steam might come out of my ears. How could they do this? I didn't agree to share. I didn't say, hey, come use my pool. But there it was, right on the paper, community property. I wanted to yell or stomp my feet, but instead, I decided to do something about it. So, I put on my shoes and marched out the door. I was going to the HOA meeting. That's where they all sit around and talk about their rules. I'd never gone before, too boring, but this time, I had to. My pool was on the line. I walked down the street, past houses and trees, until I got to the little building where they meet. My hands were sweaty, my stomach all twisty. I wasn't sure what I'd say, but I knew I couldn't let this happen without a fight. I pushed the door open and stepped inside. There they were, the HOA people sitting at a big table, papers everywhere. And right in the middle? Karen. She's the president, the one who runs everything. She looked up at me and smiled, but it wasn't a nice smile. It was a smirk, like she'd already won a prize. Karen's tall, with sharp eyes and a voice that sounds sweet but isn't. She leaned back in her chair and said, "Oh, hi, Jake. Nice to see you." I held up the letter and said, "What's this about my pool?" My voice was loud, maybe too loud, but I didn't care. Everyone turned to look at me, Mr. Peterson, Sarah, all the others. Karen didn't even blink. She just kept that smirk and said, "It's for the good of the neighborhood, Jake." Her voice was all sugary, like candy that's fake and sticky. "We decided your pool should be for everyone. You wouldn't want to be selfish, would you?" Selfish? Me? I couldn't believe she said that. My mouth dropped open. I wasn't selfish, I worked for that pool. It was mine, not theirs. I stood there, staring at her, feeling my face get hot. The room was quiet, except for a little cough from Mr. Peterson. Karen kept talking, like she was explaining something easy. "See, Jake," she said, "we all live here together. It's only fair that we share nice things. Your pool is so big and pretty, why keep it all to yourself?" Fair. I wanted to laugh, but I was too mad. Fair would be letting me keep what I earned. Fair would be asking me first. But no, they just made this rule and thought I'd be okay with it. I looked around the table. Sarah nodded like Karen was right. Mr. Peterson stared at his hands. No one said, "Hey, maybe Jake should decide." They all agreed with Karen, and that made me even madder. I took a deep breath and tried to talk. "This isn't fair," I said. "I paid for that pool. I saved up for years. It's in my yard, not yours." My voice shook a little, but I kept going. "You can't just take it." Karen tilted her head, like I was a kid who didn't get it. "Oh, Jake," she said, "it's not taking. It's sharing. The HOA has rules, and this is one of them. You signed up for that when you moved here." I wanted to shout, "I didn't sign up for this," but I stopped. I remembered signing some papers when I bought my house, but they were long and boring. Did I miss something? Did I agree to this without knowing? My head spun, but one thing was clear, Karen thought she'd won. The meeting kept going, but I barely heard it. They talked about grass and trash cans, acting like my pool wasn't a big deal. I sat down, my hands in fists. Karen's smirk stuck in my mind. She thought I'd just give up, say, "Okay, fine." But she didn't know me. She didn't know how much that pool meant. Selfish? No way. I wasn't the selfish one they were. They wanted my stuff without even asking. I looked at her, all calm and smug, and something clicked inside me. I wasn't going to let this happen. Not without a fight. Oh, she had no idea who she was messing with. After the meeting, I walked home slow. The sun was setting, the sky all orange and pink, but I didn't feel happy. My head was full of thoughts, mad ones, worried ones. I got to my house and looked at my pool. It was still there, quiet and blue, sparkling a little in the fading light. For now, it was mine. But how long would that last? I pictured Karen and the others showing up tomorrow, towels in hand, acting like they owned it. I could almost hear her saying, "Thanks, Jake, this is great." No. I wouldn't let that happen. I had to stop them. But how? I didn't know yet, but I'd figure it out. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about the letter, about Karen's fake sweet voice. "You wouldn't want to be selfish, would you?" she'd said. It made me so mad. I wasn't selfish, I was proud. Proud of my pool, proud of my hard work. They didn't care about that. They just saw something nice and wanted it. I tossed and turned in bed, my blanket all twisted. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her smirk. I heard her words. I felt that hot, angry feeling in my chest. By morning, I was tired but ready. This was war, not with punches or yelling, but with a plan. A smart one. The next day, I went outside and stared at my pool. It looked so peaceful, like nothing was wrong. But everything was wrong. I grabbed the letter again and read it one more time. Community property, it said. By order of the HOA. I crumpled it up and threw it in the trash. That didn't fix anything, but it felt good. I sat on my porch, thinking hard. Karen thought she could push me around. She thought I'd just nod and let them take my pool. But I'm Jake Tanner, and I don't give up easy. I'd worked too long, too hard, to lose this. They wanted a fight? They'd get one. I started watching my neighbors closer. Mr. Peterson was in his yard, digging like always. Sarah's boys ran by, kicking a ball. Karen walked down the street, head high, like she owned everything. I wondered what they'd do next. Would they just show up with swimsuits? Would they knock and say, "Hey, Jake, we're here to swim"? I didn't know, but I knew I had to be ready. The tension was building, like a storm coming. You know that feeling when something big is about to happen? That's what I felt. My pool was mine, and I'd protect it. Karen had no clue what was coming. Days passed, and I kept thinking. I'd sit by my pool, looking at the water, planning in my head. I didn't swim much now, I was too busy worrying. Every splash I heard, I'd jump, thinking someone was in my yard. Every time the doorbell rang, I'd peek out, scared it was them. The HOA had started this fight, and I was in it now. Karen's words stuck with me, "It's for the good of the neighborhood." Ha! Good for them, maybe, but not for me. I wasn't selfish, I was mad. And that mad was growing, pushing me to do something big. Something they'd never forget. So there I was, caught in this mess. The letter came, the meeting happened, and now I was stuck. Karen and the HOA thought they could take my pool, just like that. They thought I'd roll over and let them. But they were wrong. I wasn't some quiet guy who'd give up. I was Jake, and I had a fire in me. That smirk of hers? That fake voice? It made me want to fight harder. This wasn't just about a pool anymore, it was about standing up. Have you ever had someone try to boss you around? That's what this was. And I wasn't going to lose. The tension was thick, like fog you can't see through. Every day, I waited for them to make their move. Every night, I dreamed of my pool, safe and mine again. Karen didn't know it, but she'd started something she couldn't stop. She thought I was weak, easy to push. Oh, no. She had no idea who she was messing with. I'd find a way to win, I had to. My pool, my dream, my fight. Stick with me, friends, because this story's about to get even crazier. Hey, friends. So, things were getting wild at my house. Weeks went by after that HOA letter, and oh boy, it got worse, way worse. My name's Jake Tanner, and my pool? It was my favorite thing ever. But now, it wasn't just mine anymore. Neighbors I barely knew started showing up, acting like my backyard was their playground. They'd come with towels and floaties, hopping right into my pool like it was a big public park. I'd peek out my window and see them, people I didn't even talk to, splashing and laughing. It made my stomach twist. What would you do if someone took over your stuff? Stick with me, because this story's about to get really good. At first, I couldn't believe it was happening. I'd stand there, staring, thinking, is this real? It was. One sunny day, I saw a guy named Tom. He lives 3 houses down, walking up my driveway. He had a big towel over his shoulder and a goofy grin. "Hey, Jake," he yelled, like we were buddies. "Mind if I swim?" Before I could even answer, he jumped in splash, right into my pool. My pool. I wanted to yell, "Get out," but my voice got stuck. He didn't even wait for me to say yes or no. He just took over, like it was normal. I stood there, my mouth open, watching him float around like he owned the place. Then it wasn't just Tom. More people came. Sarah's boys, those loud little kids, showed up next. They ran into my yard, yelling and giggling, carrying armfloidas and a big rubber duck. Splash, splash, splash. They jumped in, kicking water everywhere. I watched from my porch as they screamed and played. "Cool pool, Jake," one of them shouted. I didn't say anything back. I just looked at the mess they left: candy wrappers floating in the water, stuck to the sides. Sticky, gooey stuff like gum and chocolate, all over my clean pool. I felt my hands ball up into fists. This wasn't fun anymore. This was my space, and they were ruining it. It kept happening, day after day. More neighbors, more mess. One lady brought a picnic basket and set it up right by my pool, like it was a park party. She had sandwiches and juice, and crumbs fell everywhere. Another time, a guy I didn't even know walked in with his dog, a big, hairy one with muddy paws. "Oh, he loves water," the guy said, laughing. Before I could stop him, that dog leaped in splash, and shook dirty water all over. When he climbed out, my pool looked brown, not blue. I grabbed a net to clean it, but it was gross. Let's just say it wasn't fit for swimming after that. I was so mad I could have screamed, but I didn't. Not yet. I tried talking to them. "Hey," I'd say, walking out with a fake smile, "this is my pool, you know." They'd just shrug or laugh. "HOA says it's for everyone, Jake," Tom told me one day, wiping water from his face. "Lighten up. Lighten up." I wanted to shove that towel in his mouth. But I stayed calm. I had to. Every time I saw them in my yard, my chest got tight, my face got hot. I'd worked so hard for that pool, years of saving, late nights at my job, and now it was a free-for-all. Kids yelling, dogs barking, wrappers everywhere. My happy place was gone, and they didn't even care. So, I went to Karen. She's the HOA president, the one who started this whole mess. I marched to her house one afternoon, the sun beating down on me. My shoes crunched on the gravel as I walked. I was mad, sure, but I tried to keep it together. I knocked on her door, bang, 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 and she opened it, that smirk on her face again. "Hi, Jake," she said, all sweet and fake. "What's up?" I held up my hands and said, "Karen, people are in my pool all the time. They're making it dirty. Can you stop this?" I thought maybe she'd listen, maybe she'd fix it. Nope. She just shrugged, like it was no big deal. "Rules are rules, Jake," she said, leaning against her door. "It's community property now. Deal with it. Deal with it." I stood there, my jaw tight, staring at her. That smirk, that shrug, it made me want to yell. But I didn't. I said, "This isn't fair, Karen. It's my pool." She rolled her eyes a little and said, "It's for the neighborhood, Jake. Don't be selfish." There it was again, selfish. That word hit me like a punch. I wasn't selfish. They were the ones taking my stuff. I turned and walked away, my head buzzing. Karen wasn't going to help. She liked this. She liked seeing my pool full of people, liked knowing she'd won. But she didn't know me. Not yet. After that, I started watching closer. I'd sit by my window, peeking out, keeping my eyes on everything. I saw patterns. Tom came every afternoon, always with that same towel. Sarah's boys showed up after school, their floidas bouncing as they ran. The dog guy, his name was Mike, brought that mud on weekends. They acted like my pool had a schedule, like it was theirs to use whenever. I started writing it down in a little notebook. Tom, 3 p.m., I'd scribble. Boys, 4 p.m. Dog, Saturday morning. Why? Because I was planning. I didn't know what yet, but I knew I had to do something. Something big. The mess got worse every day. Candy wrappers weren't the half of it. One time, I found a broken floatie, a ripped-up dolphin floating in the water. Another day, there was a sandwich crust stuck to my pool ladder. And after that, dog. Mud and hair everywhere. I'd scoop it out with my net, grumbling to myself. This is my pool, I'd mutter. Not yours. I'd clean it, but they'd come back and mess it up again. It was like a game to them, but to me, it was war. My blue water turned cloudy, my quiet spot turned loud. I hated it, but I kept my cool. I had to. I started noticing little things, small clues. Tom always left his towel on my chair when he was done. Sarah's boys would drop candy and not pick it up, like they didn't care. Mike never even said sorry about his dog, he'd just laugh and leave. And Karen? I saw her walking by sometimes, slowing down to look at my yard. She'd nod, like she was proud of what she'd done. It hit me, they didn't just want my pool, they didn't respect me. They thought I was some pushover guy who'd let this happen. Oh, they were so wrong. Every wrapper, every splash, every smirk from Karen, it made me madder, but it also made me smarter. I'd sit on my porch at night, looking at my pool in the dark. It was quiet then, no one around. Just me and the water, like it used to be. I'd think, how do I fix this? I didn't want to just yell or fight, that wouldn't work. I needed something sneaky, something they'd never guess. I'd tap my pencil on my notebook, ideas spinning in my head. What would you do if someone took your favorite thing? Would you give up? Not me. I was mad, sure, but I was patient. I watched. I waited. And bit by bit, a plan started growing in my mind. One day, I saw something that sealed it. I was cleaning the pool again, more wrappers, more mud, when Karen walked by. She stopped, leaned on my fence, and said, "Looking good, Jake. Nice to see everyone enjoying it." Enjoying it? I wanted to throw my net at her. But I smiled fake, tight, and said, "Yeah, real nice." She didn't catch the sarcasm. She just nodded and walked off, that smirk still there. That's when I knew, talking wouldn't stop this. Complaining wouldn't work. They'd keep coming, keep taking, unless I made them stop. And I would. Oh, I would. The weeks dragged on, and my yard stayed busy. Kids screaming, dogs barking, towels everywhere. I'd stand by my window, watching it all, my notebook full of notes. Tom, 3 p.m., boys, 4 p.m., Karen, smirking again. I was mad, but I was calm too. I didn't yell anymore. I didn't beg them to leave. I just watched, like a hawk waiting for the right moment. They thought they'd won. They thought I'd given up. But I hadn't. I was planning something they'd never see coming, something big, something wild. My pool was mine, and I'd take it back. How? Keep going with me, I promise it gets good. Hey, friends. It's me, Jake Tanner, back with the wildest part of my story yet. Everything had been building up, weeks of mess, nosy neighbors, and that sneaky HOA rule about my pool. But then came the big day, the one I call the day of reckoning. It was a Saturday, bright and hot, the kind of day where everyone wants to be outside. And oh, my whole neighborhood was out by my pool. They were laughing, splashing, acting like it was their own personal resort. Kids screamed, adults floated, dogs ran around. It was loud, messy, and totally not mine anymore. But that day? That's when I took it all back. Stick with me, this gets awesome. Let's set the scene. The sun was shining high, not a cloud in the sky. My backyard was packed. Tom was there, floating on his back with that goofy grin. Sarah's boys were jumping in, splashing water everywhere, their floaties bouncing. Mike had his big, muddy dog again, and it was chasing a ball right by my pool. Candy wrappers floated on the water, picnic crumbs were all over my grass. It looked like a party I didn't invite anyone to. And standing there, right in the middle of it all, was Karen. She's the HOA president, the one who started this whole mess. Her arms were crossed, her head high, like she was the queen of the block. She'd look around and smile, proud of what she'd done. I watched from my window, my heart pounding. I'd had enough. For weeks, I'd been mad. Neighbors took over my pool, left it dirty, ignored me when I complained. Karen just shrugged and said, "Rules are rules, Jake." I'd cleaned up their messes, watched them laugh, and kept my cool. But not today. Today was different. I'd been planning something big, something they'd never guess. I didn't tell anyone, I just waited for the perfect moment. And that Saturday? It was perfect. The whole neighborhood was there, all in one place, thinking they owned my pool. They had no idea what was coming. I was done being quiet. It was time to show them who I really was. I took a deep breath and got ready. I had a wheelbarrow in my garage, big, rusty, but strong. I'd filled it up the night before, but no one knew. I put on my old sneakers, grabbed my hat, and stepped outside. My heart was thumping, but I had a big grin on my face. I pushed that wheelbarrow out my back door, the wheels squeaking loud. Everyone turned to look. Tom sat up in the water, dripping wet. Sarah's boys stopped splashing, their mouths open. Mike's dog barked once, then tilted its head. Karen uncrossed her arms, her eyes narrow. "What's he up to?" I heard someone whisper. They all stared as I rolled that wheelbarrow right up to the edge of my pool. Oh, you should have seen their faces. I stopped and looked at them, no talking, just grinning. The wheelbarrow was heavy, full to the top. They couldn't see what was inside yet, but they'd find out soon. I tipped it forward, slow at first, and then bam, I dumped it. Bag after bag of cement mix poured out, right into my pool. Big, heavy sacks hit the water with loud splashes, thump, thump, thump. Gray dust flew up, clouding the air like smoke. The crowd gasped. Kids yelled, "What's that?" Tom scrambled out, slipping on the edge. Mike grabbed his dog, his eyes wide. Karen's jaw dropped so low I thought it hit the ground. But I wasn't done. I grabbed my hose, turned it on full blast, and aimed it at the cement. Water hissed out, mixing with the gray powder, making a thick, gooey mess. "If it's community property," I shouted, loud so everyone could hear, "then no one's swimming in it." My voice boomed over the yard. The hose sprayed, the cement spread, and the pool started changing. That blue water they loved. It turned gray, then thick, like mud. The crowd went silent, no more laughing, no more splashing. Just the sound of water hitting cement and their shocked breaths. I kept going, dumping more bags, spraying more water. The dust got in my hair, on my shirt, but I didn't care. I was grinning bigger than ever. This was my moment, my big reveal. They thought they could take my pool? Nope. I'd make sure no one could use it, not them, not me, not anyone. Karen finally moved. She stepped forward, her face red, her hands shaking. "Jake. What are you doing?" she yelled. I turned off the hose for a second and looked at her. "What's it look like, Karen?" I said, calm but strong. "You said it's for everyone." "Well, now it's for no one." She blinked, like she couldn't believe it. "You can't do this," she screamed. "It's against the rules." I laughed loud, real laughter. "Rules?" I said. "You made the rules, Karen. You took my pool. Now it's gone." I turned the hose back on and kept pouring. The cement was hardening fast, locking up my pool for good. The neighbors just stood there, frozen. Tom's towel fell off his shoulder, soaking in a puddle. Sarah pulled her boys close, whispering, "SHH, let's go." Mike's dog whined, tugging at his leash. They didn't know what to say. They'd been so happy, swimming and playing, thinking they'd won. But now, their fun was over. The pool wasn't a pool anymore, it was a big, gray blob. I kept working, bag after bag, until the wheelbarrow was empty. The hose ran until the water stopped mixing and just sat on top, a shiny layer over the cement. I stepped back, hands on my hips, and looked at my work. It was done. My pool was gone, but so was their party. Karen stomped over, her shoes squishing in the wet grass. "You're crazy, Jake," she shouted. "This is vandalism. We'll fine you." We'll sue you. Her voice was high and squeaky now, not sweet anymore. I shrugged, still grinning. Go ahead, I said. It's my pool, my yard. You said it's community property, but it's not a pool now, is it? She opened her mouth, then closed it. She didn't have an answer. For once, that smirk was gone. Her face was all shock and anger, and I loved it. The crowd started whispering again. He filled it with cement. No more swimming. But no one dared yell at me. They just watched, stunned. I turned to them, the hose dripping in my hand. You all wanted my pool, I said, loud and clear. You came here every day, made it dirty, acted like it was yours. Well, guess what? It's not yours anymore. It's not anyone's. I dropped the hose and crossed my arms, staring them down. Tom looked away, scratching his head. Sarah hugged her boys tighter. Mike muttered something and pulled his dog toward the gate. They didn't argue, they couldn't. They'd pushed me too far, and this was what they got. A big, solid slab where their fun used to be. The air was thick with that gray dust, settling on everything: my shirt, their towels, the grass. The pool was a mess, but it was my mess now. No more blue water, no more fluids, just cement, hard and gray and final. Karen tried one more time. This isn't over, Jake, she hissed, pointing at me. You'll regret this. I just smiled. Maybe, I said. But you won't swim here again. She huffed, turned, and stormed off, her shoes leaving little prints in the mud. The others followed, slow and quiet, like a parade of sad faces. They'd lost, and they knew it. I stood there alone, looking at what I'd done. My pool was gone, really gone. I couldn't swim in it anymore either. But you know what? It felt good. They couldn't take it from me if it wasn't there. I'd won, in my own way. The yard was silent now, just the sound of the wind and a few birds. The cement was drying fast under the sun, turning solid as a rock. I'd had enough of their splashing, their mess, their rules. This was my big move, my big reveal. I wasn't the quiet guy they thought. I was Jake Tanner, and I'd fought back. You should have seen their faces, friends. Tom's eyes bugging out, Sarah's boys gaping, Karen's jaw on the ground. It was worth it, every second. They thought they could boss me around, but I showed them. My pool wasn't theirs anymore. It wasn't even a pool. What would you do if someone took your favorite thing? I bet you'd fight too. This was my fight, and I'd won it big. Stick around, because the story's not over yet. What happens next is just as wild. Hey there, friends. It's me, Jake Tanner, and we're at the end of my crazy pool story, or at least, the part where everything settles down. That big Saturday when I dumped cement into my pool? That was wild, right? But what happened after was just as important. It took hours of pouring, mixing, and waiting, but by the time the sun went down, my pool wasn't a pool anymore. It was solid, hard, like a big rock. No more splashing, no more messes, just a giant gray slab sitting in my backyard. And oh boy, did that feel good. Stick with me, because this is where justice gets served, and it's super sweet. Let's back up a little. After I poured all that cement and sprayed it with the hose, the neighbors just stood there, shocked. Tom, Sarah, Mike with his dog, they didn't know what to do. Karen was yelling, her face all red, but I didn't stop. I kept going until every bag was empty and the water stopped moving. The gray goo started to dry, getting harder every minute. The sun was high at first, then it dipped lower, turning the sky orange and pink. I didn't quit until it was done. By sunset, that pool was gone for good. No more blue water, no more fluids, just a big, flat piece of cement. I stepped back, wiped my sweaty face, and looked at it. My yard was different now, but it was mine again. Karen didn't give up easy, though. Oh no, she tried to fight me right away. She stomped over, her shoes squishing in the wet grass, and started yelling. Jake, you can't do this, she shouted, her voice loud and squeaky. This is against the rules. We'll fine you. We'll sue you. She waved her arms, pointing at the cement like it was a crime. The other neighbors watched, whispering to each other. He's in trouble now, I heard Tom mutter. Sarah hugged her boys, her eyes big. Mike scratched his head, his dog whining at his feet. They thought Karen would win, like always. But I wasn't scared. I'd done my homework, and I had a trick up my sleeve. See, I'd been smart. After weeks of them taking over my pool, I got mad, but I also got sneaky. I went to my house one night, pulled out the big HOA rule book, and read every page. It was boring, full of tiny words and long sentences, but I kept going. I wanted to find something, anything to help me. And I did. I found a loophole, a little gap in their rules they didn't see. The book said community property only counted for things like pools, playgrounds, or garden stuff everyone could use. But if my pool wasn't a pool anymore, if it was just a slab of cement, then it didn't fit the rule. The HOA couldn't touch it. It was my yard, my stuff, and they had no power over it now. I'd beat them at their own game. So when Karen yelled about fines and lawsuits, I just grinned. Go ahead, Karen, I said, calm and cool. Check the rules. It's not a pool anymore. It's a patio now, a big, gray patio. You can't call it community property if no one can swim in it. Her mouth opened, then shut, like a fish gulping air. She didn't know what to say. I'd checked the rules, and she hadn't. She thought I was dumb, just some guy who'd give up. But I wasn't. I'd found the secret, and it worked. Karen's face went from red to white, her eyes narrow. She knew I was right, and she hated it. The neighbors started grumbling then. No more swimming, Tom said, kicking the dirt. What a waste, Sarah mumbled, pulling her boys away. Mike shook his head, his dog tugging at the leash. They packed up their stuff, wet towels, floaties, picnic baskets, and shuffled out of my yard. No one looked happy. They'd come every day, made messes, acted like my pool was theirs. Now it was gone, and they didn't know what to do. I watched them go, one by one, their heads down. Karen stayed longest, staring at the cement slab like she could make it disappear with her eyes. This isn't over, Jake, she hissed, her voice low. Then she turned and stormed off, her steps fast and angry. She was defeated, and everyone saw it. When they were all gone, my yard was quiet again. Just me, the birds, and that big gray slab. The sun was almost gone now, just a little glow on the horizon. I grabbed a chair from my porch, dragged it over, and sat down next to my new patio. I popped open a cold drink, lemonade, my favorite, and took a big sip. The air was cool, the night was coming, and I smiled. My pool was gone, sure, but so was their party. They couldn't take it from me anymore. It wasn't theirs, it was mine, all mine, even if it was just cement now. Justice never felt so sweet, friends. I'd won, and it was awesome. I sat there a long time, sipping my drink, looking at the slab. It wasn't pretty like my pool used to be. No blue water, no sparkles in the sun. But it was better than having strangers in my yard every day. I thought about all those weeks, Tom swimming, kids splashing, that dog making it dirty. I thought about Karen's smirk, her fake sweet voice saying, rules are rules, Jake. She thought she'd beat me, thought I'd let them walk all over me. But I didn't. I fought back, and I found a way to win. That cement? It was my victory, my way of saying, this is mine, and you can't have it. The next day, things stayed quiet. No one came by. No towels, no floaties, no barking dogs. I looked out my window and saw Tom walking past, his head down. Sarah's boys rode their bikes, but they didn't stop. Mike's dog stayed home, I didn't hear it bark once. And Karen? I saw her down the street, talking to someone, her hands waving. She was mad, I could tell, but she didn't come near my house. They all knew it was over. The pool was gone, the rule didn't work, and I'd taken my yard back. I smiled every time I thought about it. My plan had worked perfectly. I started calling it my patio, just for fun. Hey, nice patio, Jake. I'd say to myself, laughing. It wasn't really a patio, no chairs, no table, but it was mine, and that's what mattered. I'd walk out every morning, look at it, and feel proud. No more messes to clean, no more strangers to chase off. Just peace, quiet, and a big gray slab that said, Jake won. The neighbors didn't like it, but I didn't care. They'd pushed me too far, and this was what they got. Justice, served up cold and hard, just like that cement. Days turned into weeks, and life got normal again, my kind of normal. I'd sit outside with my lemonade, listening to the birds, no noise from next door. Sometimes I'd miss my pool, sure. I loved swimming, floating, feeling the water. But I didn't miss the chaos. I didn't miss Karen's rules or Tom's grin or those candy wrappers everywhere. I'd traded my pool for peace, and it was worth it. The HOA couldn't touch me now, they had no power over a slab. I'd found a loophole, used it, and won. Every sip of that lemonade tasted like victory. Karen tried one more time, a few days later. She sent me a letter, another one, saying I'd broken some rule about changing property. I laughed and showed it to a friend who knows stuff about rules. He said, "Jake, they've got nothing. It's your yard, your cement. They can't do a thing." I kept that letter, just for fun, next to my rule book. It was proof they'd lost. Karen could yell all she wanted, but she couldn't change it. My yard was mine again, and that was that. So there I was, sitting by my new patio, watching the sunset every night. The neighborhood was quiet, the way I liked it. No more crowds, no more fights, just me and my victory. I'd taken a big risk, dumping that cement, but it paid off. They couldn't take what wasn't there. Justice felt sweet because I'd earned it. I'd worked hard, planned smart, and stood up for myself. My pool was gone, but my pride? Bigger than ever. And that, friends, is how I turned a mess into a win. What do you think? Pretty cool, right? Hey there, friends. It's me, Jake Tanner, wrapping up my big pool story. We've been through a lot together, neighbors taking over my pool, me fighting back with cement, and finally getting my yard back. It was wild, right? But now, I want to sit down with you and think about what it all means. What's the lesson here? What can we take away from this crazy adventure? I've got some ideas, and I think they're pretty cool. So grab a seat, maybe a snack, and let's talk. This is the part where we figure out why it matters and how it can help you too. So, what's the big lesson? I think it's this: sometimes, people who push you around act like they've got everything under control. They make rules, boss you around, and think you'll just sit there and take it. That's what Karen and the HOA did to me. They saw my pool, decided it was theirs, and thought I'd let them have it. Karen with her smirk, Tom with his towel, Sarah's boys with their Floydas, they all figured I was an easy target. They thought they'd won before I even started fighting. But here's the thing: when you stand your ground, when you fight smart, they find out real fast they picked the wrong person to mess with. And that's exactly what happened. Think about it. Karen pushed me hard. She made that rule, sent that letter, and watched everyone take over my pool. She thought I'd give up, maybe cry a little and let it go. But I didn't. I stood up for what was mine. I didn't just yell or stomp my feet, I got sneaky, I got smart. I found that loophole in the rules, grabbed that cement, and turned my pool into something they couldn't use. It wasn't easy. It took time, planning, and a lot of guts. But when I did it, when I dumped that cement and watched their jaws drop, they learned something: I wasn't weak. I was strong. And you can be strong too. That's what I want you to think about. What about you? Have you ever had to stand up for something that's yours? Maybe it's not a pool, maybe it's a toy, a spot on the playground, or even your favorite pencil that someone tried to take. Did someone push you around, thinking you'd just let it happen? I bet you've got a story. I'd love to hear it. Tell me below what happened. Did you fight back? Did you find a smart way to win, like I did? I'm serious, I want to know. Your stories are awesome, and they show how brave you can be. Standing up isn't always loud or big. Sometimes it's quiet, like me sitting with that rule book, figuring out my plan. Sometimes it's bold, like pushing that wheelbarrow out and dumping cement. But every time, it's about saying, "This is mine, and you can't take it." For me, it was my pool, my dream, my hard work. I'd saved up for years, worked late nights, and made it happen. No way was I letting Karen and the neighbors steal that from me. And when I fought back, when I won, it felt so good. Not just because I kept my yard, but because I showed them who I really was. I wasn't just Jake, I was Jake who stands up. Life's funny like that. People will try to take things from you, big things, Little things, stuff that matters. They might think they're stronger or smarter, like Karen did. But here's the secret, you've got power too. You don't have to let them win. You can fight smart, find your own loophole, make your own plan. Maybe you don't pour cement, that was my crazy idea, but you can do something. Maybe you talk to a teacher, tell a friend, or come up with a trick no one sees coming. Whatever it is, when you stand your ground, you show the world you're not someone to mess with. And that's a pretty cool feeling. I think about my pool a lot now. It's gone, turned into that gray slab, but I don't feel sad. I miss swimming sometimes, sure, floating in the water was the best. But I don't miss the mess, the noise, the people who didn't care. I traded my pool for peace, and I'd do it again. That's another lesson, sometimes winning doesn't mean keeping everything the same. Sometimes it means changing things so you're happy, not them. My yard's quiet now, just me and my lemonade, and that's worth more than a pool full of strangers. Life's too short to let anyone take your peace, friends. Don't let them steal what makes you smile. What makes you smile? What's your pool, your special thing you'd fight for? Maybe it's a place you love, like a treehouse or a cozy corner. Maybe it's something you made, like a drawing or a toy you built. Whatever it is, hold on to it. Don't let anyone push you around and take it away. You've got that strength inside you, just like I did. When I sat by that cement slab, sipping my drink, I felt big, not because I beat Karen, but because I stood up for me. You can feel that too. You're tougher than you think, and when you fight smart, no one can stop you. Let's keep this going, okay? Tell me your stories below, I mean it. Ever had to stand up to a bully? Ever saved something you love from being taken? I want to hear every detail. Maybe you were scared at first, like I was when I got that letter. Maybe you got mad, like I did when I saw that dog in my pool. But then you did something brave and it worked. Those stories matter. They show you're strong, just like me pouring that cement. I'd love to cheer you on, so spill it, I'm waiting. Life's too short for bullies, friends. Too short for people like Karen who think they can boss you around. My pool story taught me that. I could have let them have it, let them swim and splash and ruin my dream. But I didn't. I fought, I won, and I got my peace back. You can do that too. Whether it's a big thing or a small thing, stand up for what's yours. Fight smart, not just hard. Find your cement, your way to say, nope, not today. And when you do, you'll feel that sweet justice, just like I did with my cold drink and my quiet yard. So that's at the end of my tale, but not the end of us talking. I've got more stories, and I bet you do too. See you in the next one, okay? Keep being brave, keep being you. Don't let anyone take your pool or your peace. You've got this, friends. Stand tall, fight smart, and smile big. That's the Jake way, and it can be your way too. Catch you soon.